Welcome to the Forever Never podcast. I'm your host, Omar Hargrove. And today I want us to understand that relationships take work. And if we're honest, we can all agree that love isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. And today we're starting with one of the most important pillars of a thriving relationship, and that is intimacy. Now, when we hear the word intimacy, our mind often goes straight to physical closeness. And yes, that is a big part of it, but intimacy is so much deeper because it's about being connected emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. It's about truly knowing your partner and letting them know you in return. So if you've ever felt like that spark in your relationship has faded a bit, or you're just looking for ways to stay connected in the middle of all of life's different ups and downs and changes and chaos, this episode is just for you. So let's get started with our first part, which is the evolution of intimacy. Let's take a trip down memory lane and think about to the early days of your relationship. Remember those late night conversations where you lose track of time? Me and Lauren would spend all night just hearing each other breathe sometimes, as we didn't even know what to say, but we wanted to feel close because the butterflies in your stomach, they felt so good when you would talk to each other, when you would see each other. And the way of just being together would make you feel like you could just conquer anything, almost like nothing else mattered. Those moments are truly incredible. But as time goes on, life has a way of kind of crowding out that spark. And whether it's work, whether it's kids, whether it's responsibilities, they all pull at your attention from different directions. And before you know it, those magical moments of connection can feel like this just distant memory to where you almost wonder if it was real. And here's the thing, just because the spark feels different doesn't mean that your love is any less real or strong. It simply means that your relationship is evolving. Your lives are evolving. And that initial spark is like this fire starter, but the warmth of a long-term relationship comes from tending that fire. It takes effort, but the rewards are worth it and still possible. Intimacy isn't about going back to the way things were. It's about growing together in the present. It's about finding new ways to connect and rediscovering what makes your bond unique. With that being said, let's go into the second idea, which is really I'm pulling back the layers of intimacy. So talking about what intimacy really means, I like to think of it kind of like this multi-layered connection that includes all parts of us, the physical, the emotional, mental, and even the spiritual intimacy. Each layer plays this vital role of building this thriving relationship. Take physical intimacy. It's often what people think of first, and yes, it is important. It's the touch of a hand, a kiss, holding each other close. Physical closeness reminds us that we're loved and that we're valued. And now let's talk about emotional intimacy. It's about sharing your inner world, your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, your feelings. And it's about feeling safe enough to feel vulnerable with another person, with your partner. And when you get into the mental intimacy, this is staying engaged in each other's lives. It's about asking what's been on your mind lately, or what are you excited about? It's about sharing these ideas and being genuinely interested in each other. And then there's, of course, spiritual intimacy. For some, that might be praying together, attending church together, sharing your faith together. For others, it's about encouraging each other's personal growth and really helping each other align your values or create this shared sense of purpose, to where it feels like your souls are being driven together. And when all of these layers come together, they create this relationship that's not just surviving, but thriving. And I want us to understand that each of these parts go hand in hand. And if you take one away, the rest kind of crumble. If you, for example, if you take emotional intimacy away, to where you feel like you can't really emotionally trust your partner, it's a lot harder to have sex with them. That physical intimacy lacks. You're not holding hands as much. You're not making out on the couch together just because you're emotionally disconnected. Same goes for mental, same goes for spiritual. All these other things feel impacted when one is messed up. Even and vice versa still counts. It's not just all about sex, but even when you might notice that you guys haven't had sex in a while, then you'll notice that you feel emotionally stagnant. You feel distant. You feel like there's almost like you'll feel like there's a wedge between y'all mentally. So again, each of these layers matter. Now let's go on to building intimacy in daily life. So how do we do this in practical ways? It doesn't have to be this complicated or expensive process. Sometimes it's the simplest things that can make the biggest impact. First, keep the lines of communication open. This might sound like obvious, but you'd be surprised at how often we forget to really talk to each other. And I don't mean just like discussing schedules or to-do lists or did you take out the trash? We need to be sure to do this. Don't miss this recital. I mean, talking about how you're feeling. I mean, talking about what's on your mind, even if it's, things that your spouse might not care about. It's still good to kind of like talk about these things. Like for me and Lauren, I like video games. She doesn't care about video games at all. But I'll just kind of like commonly say like, oh, I've been playing this game. And I know that she doesn't care, but it's kind of like this idea that we're building communication with each other. We're talking about things that we're excited about. And it's not just what's on our mind and our feeling, but even what's on our heart. Second, let's prioritize our time together. Life will always keep getting busier. And if you think, well, we'll just wait till things get less busy, you are just going to sell yourself short. Life will continue to get busy, and it's easy to let your relationship fall to the bottom of the list as you continue to stack other things as being more priority. Intimacy does not happen by accident. It happens when you make time for it. Whether it's a regular date night, so you guys going on date night once a month, once a week, whatever it may be, or maybe like a morning coffee ritual to where you guys always you get up a little bit earlier just before the kids so you guys can have coffee and sit together. Or maybe that's at nighttime where you have a moment where you just talk at night. Or you go on a walk around the neighborhood. Just kind of these regular moments in which you're able to connect with one another. And third, lean into these small gestures. Intimacy isn't just about these grand romantic gestures. It's in the little things. I am like a romantic diehard at heart. I really love doing big romantic gestures. And as much as I like doing them, I know without a doubt that it's the little things that I do that matter most to Lauren. It's those small gestures, like leaving a note on the door. Or her leaving a note in my lunchbox. It's like these little things that matter so much. Texting them in the middle of the day to say that you're thinking about them or to say that you love them. It could be simply holding your hand while you're walking with your kids at the park, even though you guys always go to the park, but taking a moment to stop and hold hands, even while watching TV. These small actions create a sense of closeness that builds over time. And that being said, let's go into this number 4, which is the role of vulnerability in intimacy. Let's take a moment to talk about vulnerability. Intimacy thrives when we feel safe enough to let our guard down. And I feel like at the beginning of our relationships, especially our marriage, it might be easy to do that. But with unspoken expectations, letdowns, disappointments, things taken out of context, things taken the wrong way, it's easy for that guard to be put back up. Being vulnerable isn't always easy. It requires a trust and a willingness to be open even when it feels uncomfortable. For example, if something's bothering you in your relationship, vulnerability means bringing it up rather than bottling it in. It's saying, hey, I really felt disconnected when you said this, or I want us to find a way to reconnect. That kind of honesty can sometimes feel risky, like it's going to cause a fight, but it's also incredibly rewarding when you're able to reconcile things rather than letting it harbor in your heart. When both partners are willing to be vulnerable and empathize with one another, it deepens the emotional connection and strengthens y'all's bond together. Now, finally, number 5, protecting your intimacy. Let's talk about this idea that life being full of distractions, whether it's work, kids, even social media, you name it. Sometimes we unintentionally let those things get in the way of our connection to where at the end of the day, we're just tired. As we get older and older, we get more and more tired as more and more responsibilities pile up. And protecting intimacy means really setting these kinds of some type of boundaries to where maybe it's putting your phones away at dinner, or carving out kid-free time to talk, or saying no to commitments that pull you away from one another. It's about prioritizing your relationships and guarding against the things that can slowly erode that intimacy. And let's not forget also the importance of addressing issues head on. When something feels off, don't ignore it. Have those tough conversations to resolve conflicts and make space for healing. Protecting intimacy isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Even if it's like that one person that texts your spouse to where it feels kind of weird, don't just harbor it, but talk about it. It doesn't mean that we should be operating always out of jealousy, but we should also be mindful that we shouldn't play around, that there's other people that do not care about our marriage. They don't care about the reverence of our intimacy, and they would, if given the chance, trample all over it. And we don't want to give room for that. So again, protect our intimacy, and don't be allowing somebody else to be the person you're more vulnerable with than your spouse. That could really be a breeding ground for destruction. So that being said, here's my challenge for you. Take one intentional step towards building intimacy in your relationship this week. Maybe it's planning that date night, having a heartfelt conversation, or simply holding your partner's hand more often. Just take one thing and really do it well. Really be consistent. Don't get overwhelmed trying to do all these things at once, but maybe just pick one until it feels really, really good. Whatever it is, do it with love and intention. And if you want to dive deeper into these kinds of topics, I invite you to join our free Facebook group, Forever and Ever Facebook group, where it's a supportive community where we can share tips, stories, and encouragement with one another. You can also grab a copy of my book, Forever and Ever, for more insights and practical tools. And of course, the virtual workshop that we have going for this book. It's a great way to invest in your relationship. So until next time, have a great life.